Okay, this is the 4th of July edition of Ask a Special Education Attorney. Let's get right to the question. I would love to know the answer to this question before my son returns to school because I would like to have a clear idea of what my child is capable. Can I request that my son not receive supports during standardized testing without my son losing supports in the classroom? My son's principal, and you spelled principal right. Thank you so much. Inform me that if he did not have modified testing supports, then he could not have supports in class. Basically, the supports he received for standardized testing determine his eligibility for supports in school. Is this true? And that is a resounding no. Okay, but am I shocked to read that the principal's giving out bad info? No. I mean, if it wasn't for principals, I'd probably have to do some other stuff along with special ed law. The majority of the cases are triggered due to misinformation and bad leadership strategies of principals. You know, that's a position heavily prone to institutional bullying. It's one of those places where we need systemic change. And, you know, it's not like they teach a class on how to be a good leader. And, you know, I wish there was. There's some excellent principals out there. Excellent. But there's also some bad apples. But a lot of this stuff has more to do with just sheer ignorance. And not only that, it's confident ignorance. And the difference between ignorance and confident ignorance is when the confidence is attached to somebody who has a position of decision making. So you can have parents be confidently ignorant. You can have CEOs be confidently ignorant. You can have police officers be confidently ignorant because they are in decision making positions, and the decisions that they're making are damaging to other people. And they tend to be inflexible in their thinking, confident that the decisions that they're making is based in some kind of fact and truth. And that's just not realistic. Okay, you should constantly checking yourself. Constantly be checking yourself. That didn't happen. Okay. So a lot of it is, you know, I know you're in Alabama. They don't require any kind of a competency test to where the principal or assistant principal has to sign off that they are competent in the basics of 504 and IDEA law. They don't require that. So many, I mean, and so then you also have this factor where the special education director, because there's only one of them, will end up allowing or agreeing that the principals will act as LEAs in IEP meetings. And principals and assistant principals don't meet the strict definition of LEA 90% of the time, if not higher than that. So now, do I make a big deal about it all the time? No, I don't, because if you're not asking for anything out of the ordinary, then having a principal there that doesn't really understand isn't going to damage the IEP. Now, if you're asking for something unique, or if the principal is sitting there saying, well, you know, we're not going to do that. Well, at that point, yes, that becomes a big deal. If they end up having to say during your meeting, well, I'm going to have to go check, or I'm going to have to go ask up in administration, then they're not the LEA. Those decisions should be made at the meeting. That's the entire point of the LEA, is to make decisions and commit the resources of the district for that particular child. I mean, I just spouted off one of the 4 elements of the definition for LEA. Now for your question. Let's walk through this, okay? So within your IEP, and all IEPs across the country are structured the same, because that's what the federal law requires. Now, they're going to look different, okay? but they're all going to be structured the same. They all have to have the same information within them. Okay, so if you noticed in your Alabama IEP, for example, there's going to be an area. It's going to be the page right before the signature page. So if you go to the back and then it's the pages right before that, those are called the services pages. And in the services pages, you'll have your area where your special education minutes and explanations are written out, how often your child is receiving specialized instruction. That next section below that is going to be your supplementary aids and services section. That's where the accommodations are put in specific for the classroom. The push-in services, the push-in accommodations for the general education setting, the special education setting, all over that environment. That's what supplemental aids and services are, but it also incorporates accommodations, okay? Then you're going to get into accommodations for testing. It has its own freaking section. Now, why is that? That's so odd. It has its own section because there's a difference between accommodating a student within a classroom and accommodating a student for testing. It's just like a behavior plan. You can have a behavior plan for a school, for inside the school, and not for the bus. Flip it. I have had many clients that have a behavior plan for the bus only that don't need one during the school day. Now, according to the principal's genius logic, if they don't have a BIP for the school, they shouldn't have one for the bus. No, they are separate environments, separate considerations, separate needs. Accommodations for testing, whole section devoted to that. Then, not only that is, aside from the accommodations for testing, there's also another couple sheets within Alabama that lay out the formal testing, like end-of-year testing, because sometimes your end-of-year testing accommodations might be different than what you would need for, let's say, in-class tests or 9-week exams. Those are all different considerations. They don't have to be one and the same. Now, in your situation, is that a good goal? Is that a good goal to sit there and say, I need my accommodations in the classroom, but I would like to experiment with my child with regards to testing? Now, why is that? Because the goal of our children is three things. Remember, the entire mission statement of the IDEA involves independent living, continuing education, okay, like college, a trade school, and economic viability. Because our government funds this because they don't want people, they want everybody to become the best that they can and pay taxes, okay? So economic viability, continuing education, and independent living. That's the entire mission statement of the IDEA, the entire reason the government funds it. So you take that, and you sit there and go, okay, that's the mission statement, and is it good to have our children have crutches all the time, for lack of a better term? Meaning that, it's not feasible to strap your child with an aid for their entire school history because that doesn't exist once they get into adulthood. In most instances, some children will need Medicaid waivers and support throughout their life. Okay, I got that. But at the same time, if the goal is independent living, economic viability, and continuing education, which would include a trade school or college, then at that point, that is an appropriate goal to sit there because at college, they will accommodate to a degree, but they don't have IDEA in college. They do recognize 504 to a point, but at the same time, that's very, very difficult. We've had college cases before. They're not fun to negotiate because colleges, for as progressive thinkers as they are quite a-holes about a lot of this stuff, believe it or not. And I'm talking about the client that we represented. They would not accommodate her, and she was deaf. Would not accommodate her, and that was the last thing for her to be able to get her license, her diploma. So it impeded. She went through all of this schooling, and she was competent in her professional field, but she couldn't pass the rigorous exam because they would not accommodate her need for an interpreter. All that money, student loan, she still had to pay back. I mean, it was nightmarish. It took a couple years to get that worked out, guys. And you're talking about, you know, these universities that pride themselves on forward thinking. Destructive what they will do. Like I said, confident ignorance in power positions. So I think it's absolutely appropriate to sit there and have your IEP team test the waters. They should be doing that, guys. And I don't think that they should wait because, quite frankly, let's say ACT, your child's trying to get into college. A lot of the accommodations that ACT will recognize are based upon a pattern, a historical pattern of accommodations granted within the school setting, meaning right now. Okay? So you want to get those right. You want to tweak. And schools should be happy about that. They should sit there and say, yeah, let's give this a shot. Now, why is that? Because our goal is to strive toward not requiring accommodations, getting rid of the ones we don't need, exploring other options. The flexibility is there. Don't be afraid to try it out. But a lot of schools will not. I mean, a lot of IEP teams will not do that. They just, it's like they're fearful to try anything new. And it's frustrating because once you establish the base of your IEP, guys, I know a lot of people go, oh, the IEP is a contract. It's a working contract, meaning it's an evolving contract is a better word. It's an evolving contract, meaning at any point that the IEP team feels like adjustments need to be made for the betterment of the child, that IEP can be amended. That contract can be amended to reflect the changes and the need for the child. So it's an evolving contract. So don't be afraid to sit down with your IEP team as a parent or as school members to sit there for the benefit of the child and explore independence and explore these accommodations and see what they can do. Presume competence. Strive for that independence. And you'll be amazed at how our children will rise to that occasion.